We officially begin now. So thank you everyone for joining this Q&A. It's meant for first-time convention goers and for those who haven't been in a while and need a refresher. So we have George Kiriyama, George Sakai, and Leighton Jin. And
hey, how you guys doing?
And Raul Bali is chatting right now. And we also have Derek Okina, the co-chair for AASMDJ.
What's up?
So I guess the way we formatted this is that we wanted to start with a before, during, and after. So we'll start with what people should do before the convention. There's a ton of things that you need to prepare for. George, as a member on the broadcast side, what advice do you have for those people who need to put together reels and resumes and business cards?
Well, the prep part, I think we should talk about not just reels and stuff. I'll go into that in a second. But definitely, just preparing yourself from a presentation point of view is very, very huge. In fact, I know of some people now who already have started packing. Because if you try to do it last minute, the likelihood of you forgetting to pack something is pretty good. That's happened to me a couple of times. So just from experience, I mean, I think this is kind of early, but definitely give yourself a few days of packing. You want to make sure you have the right amount of clothes, the good mixture of clothes. And I know I think we're going to get that part of the discussion in a bit as well. But definitely the broadcasters, making sure you have the professional clothes. You know, if you're a guy, make sure you have your tie, your shirts. All of that is very, very important. And then in terms of resumes and reels, you know, a lot of these things now are online. So the old paper resumes, I would still recommend bringing them. But nowadays, most people just email them. And even at the convention, when you get your work critique, most of it is sending links to them now. They don't necessarily have to take them home. And actually, a lot of news directors and recruiters prefer that, less stuff for them to take back to wherever they're going. So, in terms of your reel, I would start, if you don't have a completed reel right now, I would start making one now. Because for most of you who are working and have a job and doing a reel at the same time, it's very, very challenging. So I would, if your reel is not up to speed, start putting together that reel. And again, really, you really only need about 5 minutes because, especially at these conventions, most people who critique will watch your first story, maybe your montage and your first story, and that's it, because there's a long line behind you. That's all the time they'll have for you. So make sure that whatever that first story is, it is the story. And then your montage is probably going to be very similar, if not the same, if you have on a regular resume tape or your current resume reel already. So, but just make sure that first story is the story, because they're not going to look at story number 2 or story number 3. So, anything else from other people? Ben, I think you're muted.
Leighton, do you have anything to add?
Well, with print, I just say, start going over your clips right now and making sure what you want on top. Like George said with broadcast, you want the most interesting story on top. I always suggest make sure it's a good talking point as well, because sometimes people put them in a different order, but like the top story is not really that interesting. Make sure it's something to talk about, where you can talk about not just about the story, but what you did to get the story and all the reporting that you did. I'd say make sure you have the paper clips for the print guys, but also put them on a flash drive or on a CD. Just give them something else to give. Because with paper, sometimes they can lose them and stuff like that. And of course, like George said, you can email them as well. But as far as clips, that's kind of like the advice I have. Is just start going over right now. Don't give them a lot of clips. I don't follow that advice, but don't give them a lot of clips. Give them about your 5 best, and make sure they're all good talkers. Because during the interview, you want to kind of talk about your reporting, and just give them something to remember you by, because the recruiters are going to see a lot of people, and make sure that what you talk about is going to really stick in their head who you are as a reporter and just some of the stories that would be interesting. So that'd just be kind of my 5-cent advice for you.
Bro, do you have anything to add on the radio side?
Well, something I can add both on the radio side and just general recruiting side. I've been, by the way, sorry I'm late. It's technical issues, so. I've been in the recruiting booth. I recruited in the recruiting booth for CNN for 3 years, Cox Radio for 2. And what the advice George gave was right on point. We have a lot of people to go through. If you see a low point, if you see a lull around the booth you're interested in, that may be a better time to go. But if you go and there's a lot of people in line or a lot of people going, then understand you're not going to have a ton of time. It really is one. We might get your second story if it's a live shot. Same with the people who are recruiting the online people. Again, they have they're going to look at maybe one story. It's not a ton of time because there's a ton of people who are going to be at the CNN booths and the Cox booths. So, have your speech and have what you're going to say polished and ready to go.
I'd like to add one more thing for those newcomers who are prepping up for the convention. Make sure you go through the schedule now. Go look at the convention schedule and see what panels and workshops that they're offering in DC, and kind of plan out your schedule. That way you don't have to look at it and do it on the fly. I mean, some people do that, but it's probably better if you have a plan. That you know where you're going to be on Thursday at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Also, make sure you make room for lunch. I see a lot of people who just run out of gas by 2 o'clock, and then I ask them, "What, did you have a late night or something?" They said, "No, I haven't eaten." I go, "Well, you need to eat," and especially if you're going to the career fair, you need to be at your prime level at that point, because if you're not, recruiters will notice that. So yeah, just prep up now. Make out your convention schedule. It doesn't take that long. In fact, if you do it maybe a week before, that's fine. But if you want to do it now, you can do it now. But I stress that you take some time to prepare your convention schedule, because when you get there, a lot of things start happening. You'll bump into a lot of friends, and then time just gets away from you. You just want to make sure that time management is so key for the convention. I know a lot of people who leave the convention wishing that they had done
And
this.
and for those people who are going there to look for a job, I'm changing markets. I'm about to move markets here in a couple of months. This trip to DC is a business trip. I'm treating it as a business trip. And if you're doing a business trip, you're going to plan. You're going to plan who you're going to see, when you're going to see them, and that's how you've got to treat the trip. Now, I've gone to other conventions where I'm just going to have a good time, and I can freelance it. If you're going there to look for a job, or you're specifically doing anything else, networking, you can go as you please, but if you've got a specific task in mind, you've got to treat it that way. You can win the convention before you ever land.